Hey folks, Steve here with another Deadly Woods video. Today we will be looking at turn 2 of 12, or hopefully we'll get through all of turn 2 in a timely manner. I apologize for the last video being 2 hours long. I really did not intend it to be that long, and I considered splitting the video into 2 parts, but I figured, hey, with the magic that is YouTube, you can pick up, close a browser window, reopen it, start off right where you left off, assuming you're logged into a YouTube account or on your app or whatever. So hopefully that's not a huge deal for folks. And if you're managing to still catch up and watch all of that, cool beans. We're going to get into turn 2. And fortunately, we are starting to shed some of the special rules from turn 1. We do still have some special rules for turn 2 as well as turn 3, but then after that, it will kind of burn off a little bit, and we'll have a little bit more leeway in just what we're able to do totally. So a couple of things out of the gate I want to resolve and fix. So there is a stacking rule limit where U.S. units from different corps cannot stack together. So I had in Bastogne both this 10th Division Armor Unit and this 9th Division Armor Unit. One is from better make sure I get this right, the 3rd Corps. One is from the 8th Corps. And so they cannot stack with one another. So I decided to sort of retroactively set them up differently. They had the movement to get to these locations. And what I did is I put the weaker unit out in front to kind of maybe slow down the Germans until we can get more reinforcements into Bastogne. And really, the Allies, the US player, would prefer to have a siege of Bastogne not even occur. Just try to defend Bastogne enough that it's never even really under siege, and we halt the German advancement from there. That's the hope, but we'll see how well that works. I do want to call out a special thanks to you guys, Barton, and others who have provided some pronunciation guidance in the comments. I do appreciate that. I dislike the fact that I don't have the time to research every name on the map to determine the correct pronunciation. I don't have the bandwidth for that. And any help is appreciated. So, knowing that this is Hufaliz, very helpful. Now I can actually say that since it may be relevant this turn. So Hufaliz, thank you for pointing that out. You guys, I know there's a couple different folks who are providing that guidance. I do appreciate it. The funny thing is, I have French and German ancestry. I took French in high school, which was not as good of a learning experience as my German learning in college. So I had French in high school, didn't necessarily stick well in my brain from back then, and I had much better education in college for German, and I can retain. I tend to retain a little bit more of my German, but that was several years ago, and I even for college that was like 10 years ago. So I don't my German is super duper rusty. So at this point I can't even say I recall enough or am educated enough to get things right. I like to think I could get some German stuff right, but tends not to be particularly useful in this game. There's just less German stuff to worry about. And the whole distinction between saying as an American Panzer versus Panzer, or if we were playing a slightly different campaign, instead of saying Berlin, we would probably, ideally be saying Berlin, and those differences are just what they are. So we'll live with it. And I know that crushes some people. They hate hearing somebody mispronounce things. I'm sorry. Let me know in the section down below the right way to say things if I'm getting them way wrong. I will do my best. Okay, so turn 2, we are actually, for the first time in the game, going to look at the actual action shit stuff. So I used to do this for my other Dark series, and I guess I'll do it for this series as well, is look at the action shit availability situation for any given turn at the start. And so the action shit availability chart is on the back of the rulebook. I also printed out an extra sheet for myself, and it just tends to show which player has initiative and what chits are in the cup. So I'm going to adjust the camera live instead of making a cut because that's just how I want to do it. So I have all this set up down here below. You can tell there is a pretty distinct difference in terms of the number of chits for turn two. So the Germans have initiative, and they are going to get to just do a whole lot more stuff. So, according to the recipe for the Action Chit Cup this turn, representing December 18th through the 19th, we have the All German Chit in particular. That's a special one. That means every German unit on the board will get to move and then conduct combat. That is really going to be probably a good one to do as the first chit. As the initiative player, the German player will get to pick one of their chits to go first. And I think the All German chit is a contender for that for sure. Mostly because we need to move with a lot of folks to get them in a good position. And having a combat right off the bat like that as well could put us in a really great position so that when the next pull comes up, if it allows us to do movement or combat or whatever, we'll be able to make good use of that. We have a 3 formation chit that basically just allows us to activate 3 formations of units to perform actions. I'm going to have to double check the verbiage behind that action chit, but it's a little bit more of a localized, flexible activation chit for moving some units and doing some stuff with them. We have 2 reinforcement chits. So the Germans, for the first time in the game, will have some reinforcements that will come onto the board and be able to act and operate. So that will be useful for them. We also have movement and combat chits. So on either side, it's movement or combat. Via the rules, there is some asymmetry in this game where the Germans, if they have these movement and combat chits, can only do one. So we can't draw both of these and use them both for movement. They have to be, once I use the move, the next one has to be a combat or vice versa. Whereas the allied player can, if they have 2 movement or combat chits, they can do 2 movement if that's what they want to do. So that's some flexibility the allies have that the Germans do not. And then we have these supply check markers. So this is the first turn of the game where the Germans really do actually have to care what their supply lines look like. I maybe could have gotten away with doing some more stuff last turn, but I just don't. I don't know. I wanted to ensure whatever actions we were taking were solid ones. But here, it's when we draw these chits, we actually check for supply. So in the middle of a turn, we could actually send units way out of supply or behind enemy lines or doing whatever beyond enemy Zocs, whatever the case may be, where supply could be a problem, and it doesn't matter until we pull these chits. And so really what would be great is if we drew them early, both early if feasible, and then knowing that we're safe for supply for the rest of the turn, we just go balls to the wall. That would be great for the Germans. They would love that. But we'll see what happens. And then finally, we also have the 5th and 6th Panzer Army activations for the top 2 Army delineated sectors of the map. Will get to do what they did last time, which is move, and then Army units can conduct combat. So when you really think about it, it is feasible for some units to move, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I'm sorry, basically because we have to respect the Army limitations, a single unit could still possibly do movement and combat 4 times, especially an Army unit. Move and combat 4 times this turn. So I think we had a really good start last turn for turn 1. I think the Germans are going to have a lot of benefits this turn. They need to make the most of it because these advantages will start to peter off after a few turns. But so far, so good. I mean, they're looking really, really good. Now, by comparison, the allied player has just these 4 chits, and that's it. They have 2 movement or combat chits. These are the same. They have a movement or combat on either side. They can have 2 combats if they want. They can have 2 moves if they want. That is up to them to decide. But they just get these 2, activity chits, and then they have 2 reinforcement chits. One of them is going to go in the cup. The other will be held to be used whenever the allied player decides they want to do that. Now, there's an additional special rule that comes into play here for turns 2 through 7, where the allied player can choose if they draw one of these chits, they can say, no, put it back in the cup. I'm going to use this opportunity to play my reserved uh, reinforcement chit. This is important because the reinforcement chit not only brings units onto the board, but they also get a movement. So in some ways, it is an opportunity when these chits are played to put new units on the board and to move them into a place on the map that may be very important, either to slow down the Germans or maybe to cut off the Germans or create a very difficult situation for them. So it is not just, hey, we're getting units on the board. It's, hey, we're getting units on the board and they're able to get somewhere that may really matter ultimately. Um, so that's something we need to keep in mind as we go through and play. Um, and all the motorized movement and stuff, it's just important. We need to keep in mind. Couple of things I need to call out here. These were questions that I had that were answered online. Um, so in the last video, I sort of talked about how I wanted to be careful crossing this river because of supply, and that we were only going to get to repair one bridge per turn in the 7th Army sector down here. So I had to ask and double check. When you trace a supply line, you basically can trace, I think it's 1 to 5 hexes free of enemy units and Zocs to a road, and then that road has to trace all the way back to an entry hex, right? A supply source is basically what they're acting as. I had to double check that you cannot count even those 5 hexes, those first initial 5 hexes, across unbridged river hex sides or blown bridges. So in terms of tracing supply, whether it's once you're on the road tracing back to an entry hex, or in these short 1 to 5 hexes you're counting to get to that road, in either case, at any point in that trace, it cannot be across an unbridged river hex side or a blown bridge. So it is very important for the Germans, and I guess eventually the Allies as well, to be keeping in mind that sure, you can actually cross a river if you want to. You can cross an unbridged river hex side. That you can certainly do that. But when you get to the other side of that river, you better hope that there is some path that gets you back across that river to a supply, some way to get supply once you cross that unbridged river hex side. And so we will need to keep that in mind. That's definitely going to dictate some of the activity we're going to be dealing with. The other question that I had that was critically important, which is when you are using motorized movement, can you go through a friendly unit? Now, I was playing it that you could not do that, or I'm pretty sure that's how I did it. Usually, units had enough movement points that after they used road movement, they could, you know, join another unit in its hex with its remaining movement points. So I think I played it fine, but it was something I wasn't sure about. So we could not, for instance, um, let's see if I can find an example. So if we had German reinforcements come in, let's say up here in entry hex K, those units that come on and use motorized movement could not go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever. Once they get to this hex, or before they reach this hex, which has a German friendly unit in it, they would have to stop using motorized movement. They can't go through him. And then likewise, let's say we had a unit come here in L and they wanted to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They could not do that because there are units here. And even if we had one back here, they would have to stop motorized movement because of this unit being there. So it's what I figured, because the theme of this game, the theme of the historical event, was traffic jams being an issue on these roads. Even if you wanted to be moving quickly, you still had to deal with it. So there's definitely an element here of you can't just leave guys back in reserve messing around. You need to either have them in the front line, or they're getting off the roads to make way for other units to come through that road junction further afield. So that'll be really important to keep in mind. Traffic management for the Germans in this early half of the game will be very important. Same really for the Allies on the second half of the game, but we'll see how that'll work. The Allies are going to have so many units that may end up being a greater problem at that point, where I think for the Germans right now, they don't have as much to worry about because we're doing a pretty good job of keeping the main highways clear, except for a couple of places, which I'll endeavor to do better to clear the roads for those guys. So there you go, something to think about. Okay, so I think what we're going to do then is, knowing that the Allies are going to hold this marker, I'll just set it on the map off to the side, and we'll remember that for the Allied part of my brain. I think I am going to go ahead and have the first initiative chit be the all-German chit. So everybody moves, everybody does combat. Double check to make sure that's truly the case. All German units anywhere on the map perform a movement round followed by a combat round. Yep. And this is the only turn we get to do this. So we kind of do want it to matter, to count as good as we can make it. I do think this is the best one we've got because we need to be able to create as much damage to the Allied line as possible, take as much territory as we can in a secure way so that we're making progress, right? So this will be the first initiative chit. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the action round track, and then the rest of this stuff is going to go into the cup, and from there we won't know what happens. We'll get it as we draw. You can see there's just a lot more German stuff anyway to deal with. So we have all movement and then all combat. Before we get that underway, just a quick review of what we have for our special rules. So looking at my sheet, the 150th Panzer Brigade can still move from an enemy Zoc to an enemy Zoc as part of movement, 1 hex. So he has a red bingo chit on him to remind us of that. The 106th Division units check for supply in the cleanup phase at the end of this turn and will surrender if they are out of supply. That is this unit, and this unit. This guy is currently out of supply. I could mark him as such, but I know he's out of supply at the moment, so I'm not so worried about that. Piper is in supply but has the fuel dump counter. He does have the fuel dump counter with him, so he is going to be in supply no matter what this turn because of that, of them gaining the oil and gas that was at the fuel dump. The German army restrictions are still in place, so that's straightforward. The 14th Regiment of the 5th FJ may cross army boundaries, so he is still marked with a red chit, and he is actually crossed into the 7th Army District right now. The asset restriction based on army area is still in place. We are going to get, because we're going to turn 2, there are some additional markers that are going to be available. So that's probably worth talking about before we get too far into the game. The Allies are going to get another engineer unit. The Allies are going to get a delay marker, which represents units smaller than the scale the game is representing for the most part to slow down or hold a town. They also get an 8th Corps artillery, which means that units that are more down here will actually have artillery support. And then the Germans actually get this Operation Greif marker. I want to say it's Greif, depending on how you want to pronounce that. It acts very much like the Allied traffic marker. It's going to force the Allies to have to spend 2 movement points on a particular hex. It will have to be placed in the 6th Panzer area up in the north, but we will get that, and we'll look at placing that as we get into the turn. And then one other special rule worth calling out: the U.S. airborne reinforcements have road allowance of 12 when using motorized road movement. So they just have a lot of goodness there. There is a chit that we haven't used yet for the Germans. I don't think I could on turn 1 with there is this motorized infantry. This will allow one unit to act as motorized for movement purposes. It's one unit for the turn, so we'll look at using that here shortly when we get to that first phase of the turn. And then I think maybe I could have used it on turn one, and I just didn't. But that's okay. I guess I didn't have much reason to use it given the circumstances. And let's see. And we still have a blue bingo chit on Saint-Vith to just note that that is still an important hex going into turn 3. A future turn bingo chit is how I'm looking at it. So it's just important that the Germans retain control of that town because it will provide conditional reinforcements because we've captured it. We've captured it in a good timetable. So that's all for introductory type of stuff. So let's get into the actual turn itself. So in terms of the sequence of play, we have the asset availability special reinforcement phase. So allies may remove or deploy U.S. engineer assets if available. Honestly, I think at this point, the one in the north is just fine and dandy. What I think we're going to need to do with the one that we just got, which is this guy, he can support the 8th. Let's see, engineer assets may be deployed in any friendly controlled or currently supplied village or town hex within 3 hexes of a supplied unit of its core. Okay, I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put this engineer in Bastogne. Now I can do that because he's within 3 hexes of this 8th core unit. Even if it's stacked with, it can be stacked with that 3rd core unit just fine. There's 8th army units down here that maybe could benefit more from it, but I'm less worried about this than I am about Bastogne because of its central location on the map and the road network. So I do want to defend that well as I can anyway. The Germans may deploy the Operation Grafe asset to the map if available, so it is available. Yeah, this counter represents German detachments in American uniforms, rumors of such units, and traffic jams. It's actually really interesting to read about if you have the time. In any hex on the map not occupied or adjacent to an allied unit or engineer marker, we will have to place it in the 6th Panzer area, so it can't be basically next to an enemy unit. Okay. Knowing that there are going to be reinforcements coming in at H and J, as well as E and C, I think what we ought to do is we're going to put it right here. So that just makes it hard up here for, the Allies are going to be able to get units down here. That much I can't change too much. But I want to keep these Allied armor units from being able to swing down here to Houffalize too easily. So we want to slow them down if we can. Okay, so we've placed that. Germans may deploy the German motorized marker to the map if available, and I think we will do that. Let's see, how do I want to do this? I go 1, 2, 3. I'm going to place it on this unit. There's an infantry unit underneath these armor. I'm going to use that. And the reason why I'm motorizing that unit is they're going to move. They're going to move fast and position in Houffalize. These other infantry are going to come up to hold the road lines. And then the armor is going to focus on coming down this way to take Bastogne, concentrate my armor, and just we'll see how well that works. It may provide the Allies too much of an opportunity to retake Houffalize, depending on the unit capabilities, but I think that may simply be the best options we really have. It's a pretty tough call. I may still end up wanting to put an armor unit with it and Houffalize, but we'll see. So there we go. I placed that, and now the Allies may place the Allied traffic asset if available. We can move it from here, but I think what they want to do is move it to here, right? And basically keep Houffalize from being taken easily. So it's like move, counter move, right? We're trying to set things up, and I can't trick myself because I'm playing solitaire, so I can at least try to read my own actions and do something logical at each step. Then we have the US delay asset. I guess it doesn't really matter the order that artillery goes up in the asset box, but the delay unit has to go into a Allied controlled supplied village or town hex not occupied by an Allied unit. So really, he is a speed bump. This village doesn't really matter because the Germans don't need to go to it at the moment because they have this road network to use. So I think what we want to do, if it's an area that we don't have a unit in control, I think it makes sense we put the delay marker in Houffalize, right? We actually make a stand and say we're going to try to slow things down because this is the gap, right? This is the gap the Germans are going to try to exploit, get Houffalize, operate, maybe get to Marche. I think this slows them down enough, or that's the idea. Knowing we have limited resources, but we might as well use it, right? And yeah, we got our artillery set up, good to go. Then we have the replacement phase. Each player may replace steps lost in combat. So as I look at that, the Allies get no replacements. The Germans get, if I look at the key on the player 8 sheet, get 1 infantry replacement. The reality is, because we don't get armor, and we would have rather have gotten armor, I think there's like 1 infantry unit I can actually restore right now. Where is it? I think it's somewhere up here. Yeah, this poor guy is technically an infantry unit, so we can replenish him, but he's really the only infantry unit that has a step loss. Unfortunately, because I forced combats with my 6th and 5th Panzer Army chits, only the armor could attack, and I did take some armor step losses. I took 1 effectively, and we'd like to get that restored up, but we'll make do with that as we can. So that's it for the replacement phase, and now we're at the action phase. So we got our chits loaded up in the cup. We've selected our initiative chit, which is the all German, and we can get underway. So I know we're already halfway, or we're 30 minutes into the video, and I realize this is going to take a while. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do all of the movement for the all German chit, and when we are done with that movement, I will show the aftermath and before any combats. Now, in the last video, we went through a lot of combats. I'm not sure I'm going to show very many on camera. Again, just because that's going to be very time intensive and will make for a very long video. So we'll see. Because there's a lot of chits to adjudicate, I might simply do the combats and show you the aftermath at each step. But we'll see how much time I can make. So I'll put a cut here and we'll get the movement done. Okay, so here's the movement complete. So at least in the center, which is really right now I feel the most important sector, I did manage to get through this, but it did slow things down. Where basically, because of the delay marker, I do have this unit outside Houffalize and will probably try to assault it. So that's the hope. I did move some of our armor that took Silent Veeth, and I started moving it through here. So they're kind of trying to help protect this road juncture, but they're also going to try to smush this unit so it removes some of the danger from the Allied move. I wanted to get this unit into this hex to guard it, but because of the marker, he couldn't get there. So he's stuck across the road. He wants to get there, but at the moment he cannot. I've sort of got. I have a lot of armor at Bastogne. There's a lot of armor around Bastogne in general, which is purely because of movement rates. They could get there on either side. The rush to get to Bastogne is all armor, so it's going to be an armor fight. These two units are positioned to attack this guy, and these two are positioned to maybe try to take Bastogne proper. I suspect that's going to be an issue, but if we can get a retreat result, then it's entirely possible we could get Bastogne, and that will dramatically change up the game tempo, particularly because it will be an end node for reinforcements coming from the M or L reinforcement hexes for the Germans. Now, elsewhere, because of existing units, I am trying to remove these guys. So these guys are set up for an attack. He did cross the river, so supply is a bit perilous for those guys. I did cross the bridge here and repaired it with our the south bridge marker for the 7th Army area. These guys are not really intending to attack the Allied armor. They're moving across purely to provide a supply path over the river. These guys cross the river, perilously so, but there's going to be an attack through here with the hope of eliminating these units or forcing them out and allowing these guys to cross and be in supply. So there's some risk here, but I'm doing it because it's going to put us in a good position to kind of have control of the river line. We'll have Luxembourg under threat. We'll also be protecting the southern or this flank down here where the center of the action is really going hot and heavy. I'm trying to reposition some units. The Panzer Army division restriction does make things kind of tough in terms of where we can go and with what. But we are hopefully going to be well set up to still operate in these areas. I use the special movement to sneak around, so we're creating a bit of a pocket up here. I don't think it's very valuable for the Germans to be focused on that. Knocking U.S. units out of supply, technically, all of these guys are out of supply at the moment. But the thing about it is, like, it doesn't really change a whole lot for the situation because defenders are still mostly okay for that purpose. So it's just really tough for me to try to figure out, like, well, how is this going to help eliminate those units? They won't be able to retreat without being destroyed for the most part, so that's some goodness, I guess. But I don't know. If we were able to clear this pocket, that would mean these units could all properly be trying to assault Elsenborn. And if we can start smashing our way through that line, then that helps us a whole lot. But I think this is just going to be a bit of a tarball of fighting, and we're not going to see much advancement. But we'll see. So everything here is really, uncertain as to how far we're going to get. Here, we're just going to try to hold this line, try to protect this line, and get into Houffalize, Bastogne. If we're able to do that, we can entertain the idea of pushing to Neufchâteau and Marche, but I suspect that the Allied reinforcements are going to make that nearly impossible or very, very difficult. to achieve. So it is it's just going to be tricky to see how much of an exploitation we can really achieve. If we get the right chits in the right order, then that could be the difference. So, do I want to do these attacks on camera? Knowing that we're already getting close to an hour-long video, we're already at like the 40-minute mark, I think I'm going to do them off camera, but the basic attacks that we're likely to see here are going to be this attack with these units combining. The unit is out of supply, doesn't matter a whole lot, but we want to attack him, clear the way. We want to clear the way by attacking this guy. He is also currently out of supply. We're going to have an armor fight, a couple armor fights over here, very likely. We're going to have some small arms activity to take Houffalize, or small group combats. We'll likely see some mop-up operations over here to try to knock some units around. And then up here, we'll maybe see some elimination. When I look at the reinforcement schedule, I mean, the reality is no matter how much damage we do to the Americans, it's only just to keep pace with what else is going on. And ultimately, the Germans get so few replacements that whatever they get, I mean, it's really, I mean, they're fighting on a shoestring budget, right? So the possibility of an auto victory is highly unlikely, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, we'll be right back with that combat once the combats are over. Okay, so here we are after the combats. I would say I did very well for the most part with the Germans. They happened to roll either a 4, 5, or 6 for almost all the rolls. There were a couple of 2s, and so we didn't get as far as we would have liked in some areas. So here's kind of where things stand. We eliminated the unit here, and so these guys kind of have an opportunity to put additional pressure down here in the 7th Army area. We did eliminate the unit over here and have successfully crossed the river. These units are all going to be counting supply, this being the furthest one out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to be in supply until such time that they can repair the bridge there. So they'll probably spend an action next turn doing that, but we've used up our bridge repair. So the southern sector actually went pretty well. There's just really 2 units, 2 U.S. units here, but don't get too excited, mostly because, and in hindsight, maybe I should have focused on repairing this bridge, because now we have a road line that could get down to Luxembourg City, but whatever. The thing is, the Allies are going to have reinforcements come in here soon, and it's going to be something they're going to have to deal with. So it's no freebie action here. So as good as this looks, it's going to change pretty quickly. You probably noticed the very critical success of our attacks over here. So I tried, as the Allies, to provide support where I could, using the 8th Corps artillery for the defense ahead of Bastogne, east of Bastogne, and then relying on the town and the engineer shifts. But at the end of the day, it just did not make a difference. And this guy was forced to retreat. And then in the attack on Bastogne proper, we caused a DR star result, which forced those units back. And those Germans have now successfully taken Bastogne with their primary supply lines relatively safe through this road line back through the way. Over here, our small combat operation in Houffalize saw a BL1, which removed the delay marker. This poor guy did take a step loss. Let's fix this guy. And so he is holding Houffalize, but he's a very weakened unit and is kind of at risk at the moment. These guys over here forced this infantry unit back across the army sector. And so really their intention is to kind of get through here and basically be able to have armor heading out west, or when the army restrictions are gone, they could try to outflank behind towards Liege. I suspect a push west is probably the ideal action, at least for the moment. We had some failed attacks here, a no result. These guys didn't bother to attack over here. I didn't bother to attack over here. We did force some Allied armor away. Piper succeeded in forcing some units back. But what they ended up doing is retreating and then retreating across the bridge, and they were able to successfully destroy this bridge. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. The Allies will probably also look to destroy this bridge. So they're going to try to make it really tough to advance. Our attack up here, due to Allied artillery support and different things, did not go well. And I actually decided to take a armor step loss rather than infantry because we simply don't have enough strength that if we took a step loss off one of our infantry units, it would make a counterattack way too easy and disrupt an already bad situation up here. So I went ahead and ate one for armor, which really sucks. That's now 2 armor steps lost. That it's going to be hard to get back. But we did eliminate a unit down here in that pocket, or the bulge that was existing, and now these units have moved up. So we are getting to the point now where we're going to lock this out unless the U.S. forces are able to emergency withdrawal with a movement action. And so we will get an opportunity to kind of continue to try to push through here without a river being a disruptor. So in terms of an action round, I'd say that went very well for the Germans. I rolled well. The Allies were able to stop a couple other attacks from really making headway due to their artillery support, but really, that's as good as it gets. Now, it's important to note that right now the Germans have used all of their artillery assets in the 7th Army sector already. They've used all of it in the 5th Panzer Army area. I used all in the 7th Army. It's not a Panzer Army, it's an infantry army. But these 2 army areas are dedicated for Panzer armies. The 5th Panzer Army artillery assets are used up for the turn already. And the 6th Panzer Army has used their rockets, but have not used up their main artillery. So they still have the ability to use that still. But that's really it. And then if you look, there's just barely a supply line keeping these guys in supply for the Allies. So there's what the Germans are really hoping for is that the next chit drawn is a German chit, and then they're going to maximize the damage here and really put some additional hurt on the Allies in terms of what is going on. Is it worthwhile to send somebody racing west to Marseille? I'm not so sure. But either way, it's an entertaining idea to think through. The decision point of do we keep pressing hard for an auto win or not? I think we're getting close to having to make some sort of decision on that and have to commit to something. So, okay. With that complete, we are going to draw from the cup. And so we'll see what we get. And I pulled German supply check. So this is good for the Germans. Everybody is in supply that I can see and that I can tell. Yes, everyone has supply. This traffic doesn't disrupt supply. So this guy is fine, and all the way on through, everyone is in good shape for supply. Just taking a double check, a double quick look just to make sure, but yes. So that was a goodness. We'll go back to the cup. Now the Germans would really love if it was another supply check marker. That would just be the bee's knees right now. But we'll see. What do we get? And it is an Allied marker. Crap. That's bad for the Germans, but good for the Allies. So yay, Allies. So here's the question. Do we, as the Allies, take an action, or do we do reinforcements? We could make it a reinforcements chit, and we would get, we'd put that unit back, and then we'd get a whole bunch of reinforcements. Now, where would these guys go? I'm going to stage them, just because I think that would help us visualize the benefit a little bit. So let's see, all these B1s, that's a lot of units. All these guys would end up in E. So way down in the corner. So we'd get a bunch of guys down here. And then we'd get, let's see, B2 and C. So over here. And we would get, let's see, B3 and A or B. So, and we could say B, and then we have B4s going into H way out here. So, is it worthwhile for that, which will enable us to get some units places very quickly? The airborne units, which is very important to point out here, are going to be having a movement of 12. So they could go as motorized 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they could try to get into Bastogne and cover Neufchâteau, or they could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and put some units into Marche. And then everyone else would at least apply pressure. I think that's probably more important right now, because if we don't do the reinforcement now, we're not going to have enough units to make a difference. If we just do a move as the Allies, we're not going to be able to do. I don't think we're going to be able to do enough to really dramatically hurt the Germans with only a movement. With combat, we wouldn't get anything done. So I think in this case, we are going to do that. We're going to put this guy back in the cup. We're going to let this be the held reinforcement shit because we need to get units on the board. And I'm going to take care of the movement, and we'll come back and look at that. Okay, yeah, I would say that the fact that I drew an allied chit uh, was super incredibly lucky and important for the Allies. If I had not done that, I could definitely have seen a situation where the game would be in massive peril of being lost for the Allies, just because we had really such a great opening to exploit and to hit far-reaching places like Marche. I mean, we were even, I could even see us pushing up towards Liege. And so that whole situation was looking very bad. But us being able to replace it with the reinforcement, and the fact that the reinforcements are able to move so quickly, is going to change this whole situation up quite a bit. So to round out where units move, this guy went into B. He moved here to protect the road to Luxembourg. This is nothing but a screening force. So we'll have to wait for more reinforcements. The units that came in at C, I decided to go ahead and send them straight up to outside of Bastogne, which they could reach no problem, in an effort for a potential Allied counterattack at Bastogne. I neglected to protect this road, thinking, at least for the moment, it's not under direct threat. German units over here kind of have to clear this Allied unit, which they can do, but they can't do it swift enough for us to really be too concerned about any supply issues or this sector down here, if it really matters. Then I had the airborne. I had the 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne that came in near Sedan, way over here, and they have a huge movement. The book basically alludes to them being able to move 24 hexes on roads, which says they can get on just outside of Bastogne. Well, yes, indeed, I put 3 of the units here just outside of Bastogne. So now we have several units all stacked to fight for Bastogne here. I left 1 unit behind of the 82nd and Neufchâteau just to have something back here. I don't think the Germans are going to have some sneaky way to get down here unless, I don't know, there's some weirdness that could happen. I'm going to cover my bases and ensure we don't end up with an automatic loss because of that. So one one regiment is staying back to hold. Now they've got issues where they won't have unit integrity, but I think that's okay for now. This is just me being super cautious. The 101st, however, are being a little bit more spread out. I had two regiments head out to this way to basically hold another path, one of the paths to get to Marche, and just to kind of help protect one of the road junctions here as far as they could get with their initial movement. And then two other regiments are in Marche itself to both protect it and to have, you know, another set of units sort of in the area. Because there are two units together, there is some divisional integrity there, so they're a little bit better off. The main thing is that they're at where they're at. Even if they have to fight for their locations, that is way better. And the Germans are currently getting slowed down elsewhere. So this was a good chit draw, really, for the Allies. Huge difference. We'll go to the chit cup again, and we'll see what we get. And we get a German move or combat. I do think that a move right now would probably be preferable. And so I think that's what we're going to do. So it will be a German move action here. And we'll do that. And I'll do that off camera. We'll be right back. Okay, here we are after the German move. So you can see we're sort of creating, you know, you can start to see where the front line really is. And we've got some units moved up against the U.S. forces over here in the southern sector. There is sort of a frontline, big, evolving battle situation over here at Bastogne. Though it is firmly in German hands, there is a lot of Allied activity here. I've moved through this traffic marker, which is a bummer, to get into Houffalize with some more defense, as well as a forward flanking position at Bertone. The one tricky thing is, because we're sort of locked up with these guys, there's a traffic jam that you would normally see in a lot of other World War II games where you've got some guys cut out of supply, but you just can't eliminate them yet, and that's holding things up from swinging up this way. And this guy's just holding a precarious road position up here against this unit in Vilsam. So this could go pear-shaped very quickly, depending on how quickly the Allies can get units into the area. We do have units facing Elsenborn right now, so that is under direct threat. These units are still out of supply and surrounded by a lot of German units, so still looking pretty good for the Germans, but that clutch reinforcement action for the Allies is going to make a big difference, I think, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. So with that German movement complete, we're going to go back to the cup, and we're going to see what comes out. Basically, from here, it's whatever I draw is played, because we played all the specialty things that could interrupt play. And what do we get? We get German reinforcements. Interesting. So this will be the first one we've ever gotten. This one isn't terribly exciting. We do get this mechanized brigade. Mechanized brigade. And he's going to come in at K or L. And this is our first real, like, commitment action we need to make, because if he goes into K, he's going to be a 6th Panzer activation unit, and if we put him down in L, he's going to be an M, or I'm sorry, put him down in L, he's going to be a 5th Panzer. I think we need to reinforce the center more than anything, and so I think we're going to try to do L, but where are we going to send this guy? He's going to come in and get his 6th movement. He is mechanized, so he's motorized. So he essentially is going to get to move 12 hexes. How far will that really get us, depending on how swiftly we're moving? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It would be beautifully wonderful if we could have eliminated this guy and cleared some of the roads. But his Zoc means we can't simply just move through here super easily. we should have gotten rid of this guy as soon as we could. That would have helped us a whole lot. But we don't have that luxury. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think we got to do that. And then if we get another movement chit, or we're able to do an activation, he can go up to help that area. So I think that's it. That is the only unit we get for the first German reinforcement chit. So if we got the next German one, that would be convenient. However, the next chit has to be a US chit, because we've now played a German move chit and a German reinforcement chit. It means the next chit must be an allied one. So if we don't pull an allied one, we've got to set it aside. We're going to set that aside, draw again. Okay, so we're going to put this chit back, and the allies can either do movement or combat. Well, movement's probably not going to do as much for them as you would think. Because when you look at, and they have the option, again, because of the special rule, they can do, they can do a move, and they can do a move again if they draw their next chit. Combat might be worthwhile, but only under certain circumstances. Really, the question is, do we want to try to retake Bastogne and put the Germans off track? That's certainly one option. Does movement really get us anything? Well, we can emergency move some units. Yeah, this is a tough call. Tough call. Oh, man. I think what they're going to have to do, I think they got to try to do some combat. Well, oh, man. Because here's the thing, as soon as they go, it's more likely the Germans are going to go next. It's not guaranteed, but it's more likely. So what's more important? We could move some units around down here. That might be useful, I guess. But if we can attack and retake Bastogne and hurt this whole sector down here, even if the Germans pulled their 5th Panzer Army chit next, maybe it wouldn't matter because they wouldn't have enough strength to do anything. And I like that idea quite a bit, and letting the next chit that comes up for movement be used to maybe exploit this. So I think we are going to have combat. I think we're going to try to make something happen over here where we would have 9, 12, and well, this guy might not be able to join the attack because he doesn't have friendos nearby. We might have to leave this guy out because he's not near a buddy. So it would be 9 plus 9. So it would be 18. We don't have any artillery that we could use for that. 18 versus 14. Ugh, that'd be 1-1. 1-1. Town gives us a shift to 1-2. And I don't think we'd get any other bonus, so that would be a 1 to 2. If we were lucky, we could get a ooh, I think we try it. So it's a 1 to 2 attack, but we have a 33% chance of forcing a retreat and retaking Bastogne. I think that's going to be really important. So we're going to try it. We're going to try it. I rolled a 1. So AL1. I think we're going to take it off one of these paratroopers, airborne units, and that sucks. If I had rolled a 5 or a 6, we would have forced the Germans out of Bastogne, but I rolled a 1. Well, maybe this combat shit was a bad idea. Since I've chosen a combat shit, are there any other combats worth trying? Well, our problem is units that are out of supply aren't going to be very good. We could try to do something like a 7 to 3. It would be 2 to 1 odds. And this guy's in woods. Doesn't really make a difference. But he does have artillery still. 7, we could make it 11 to 3. But we would potentially weaken Elsenborn. Ooh, tricky, tricky. Well, let's do something a little bit different. Maybe we should try up here. So we have 3 and oh, they're from all kinds of different divisions. That's a bummer. 10, 17 to 3. But it's actually 17 to 6. So it would be maybe 21 to 6. So it would be 3 to 1. They could use our artillery. Tents be 2 to 1. And then we'd lose a shift because we don't have divisional integrity. So it would be 1 to 1. We'd use up some of our artillery action. Dang, man. Yeah, I guess we try it. Okay, so we rolled well there. So a retreat result. So we're actually forcing the Germans back over here. So 1, 2, and we'll advance like so. So that is a bit of good news for the Allies. I'm sorry, that's way up in the corner of your screen, but the Allies need to at least try something, and we forced the Germans to use their artillery, and we're starting to create a fold on their flank in the edge of the map. But hey, we'll take it because we can try to exploit that a little bit and put some pressure on other units. So I think that's good. We need to be able to do that. So not a great combat shit. One good combat, one bad combat. That was really important. We'll go back to the cup and we pull Allied reinforcement. So now we're going to get our other reinforcements. So we have 1 unit coming in at J. Up here, we get 1 coming in an H up here. And, gosh, this is almost too easy because what we're going to end up doing is, oh man, there's all kinds of goofy stacking problems up there. He is a member of the 9th, so 2, 1, 2, 3. Move him there, and then this guy could do 1, 2, 3. Let's move him down here. So I think that is going to work up there. So the 2 units that reinforced here and here. They just moved over to support this. Part of the reason I did that is because they match existing divisions in the area, and you do want to keep the divisions close together. There are stacking limitations, so you can at best have 2 units from 2 different divisions together. because the way it works is as long as they're part of the same uh, division, same formation, they can stack with each other, and then you can add one more unit. But if you have units from two different formations together, then that's it, right? You fulfilled the maximum with that rule. So I've got to. The allies are going to want to eventually kind of reorganize how these guys are stacked and stuff, but they're in okay shape for the moment, and that's a decent amount of allied weight to counterbalance what the Axis has been doing elsewhere. So it's getting into a little cauldron battle up there, I guess. So that is 2 allied chits in a row. So the next chit has to be a German one. There is one more allied chit left, but very unlikely that we would draw it anyway. And we draw the other German reinforcements. So we'll let that happen. This time it is much better. So we have B2 all going into K. And they have to go into K. So one of the Ks. And then we have some units that can go into K or L. And let's see, they're all part of the 3rd and 2nd SS, and then the L here. Well, I think we'll have these guys come over here. I think we'll have these guys go do 1, 2. Problem is, mechanized can't go through forest. Only using road movement, and that's really their problem. So we have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would be it, I guess. And then here, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh no, light woods is still 2. Dang, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I mean, I guess we do something like that. Okay. Trying to get units to the front. Actually, I need to make sure that these are even legal moves, because they would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, so they would have been fine. And these guys would have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5.5, so he'd have been fine. And then 1, 2, 3, 4.5, 4.5, 5. So he wouldn't have been able to get there. So we'll just pile on here. That'll have to do, and that is legal stacking, but it's just the maximum. Again, tricky stuff, guys. Tricky stuff. Okay. Now the Germans really want an attack chit to come up, or something that will let them attack, because they've got a lot going here. The next chit drawn is indeed the 6th Panzer Army. Okay, so 6th Panzer Army action. They get to move and attack, but the attack, infantry and mechanized units may move but not attack. And all army units starting in the 6th Panzer may attack after ending movement. Okay. I think we move a guy up here. I think we move a guy up here. I think we move this guy here. I want to be careful of advancing too far. Okay. Yeah, I think that's as far as we can really go. The main thing is going to be the attacks, but again, the attacks can only come from armor units up here. So what we could do is we could have a very tricky combat occur here, and it would be 9 to 3, so 3 to 1. That looks like it is light woods, but it could be either, I guess. I don't know. That looks kind of like it's just woods. So it would be 3 to 1. Then it would be 2 shifts because it would be a shift because of defense in woods, but then and then another shift for the engineering nearby, but then would be plus 4-1 right shift because of being out of supply. So really, it would be 2 to 1, and we have a pretty decent chance of losing a armor step. So I don't think that's a good idea. Not a good idea. The other option, and I'm just going to try to get the camera a little bit set up better for this. I could try to make something happen here in Elsenborn. So I realize it gets kind of messy with these specialty chits, but the engineering unit is here in Elsenborn, and it has 7 combat factors. It is a village in rough, so it is 8 factors for defense and 1 shift left for the rough, another shift left for the engineers. So that would be tough, a tough nut to crack. We would attack across the bridge. So we would have 16, 22, 31, 34. So 34 to 8 if they threw in their artillery. 31 to 8. Oh, it's a shame we couldn't get another combat factor in there. Oh, that sucks. I should have moved this unit over here. Do I feel comfortable letting myself make that change? I think I am. I'm willing to be okay with that. It would have gone 1, 2. Well, actually, it might not even matter. Sorry, guys. I'm just going all over the place. Because it's 22. 22. 31, 34. 34. This would make it 36, I guess, if I did add it in. 36 to the artillery, Allied artillery is used. So it would be 12. 36 to 12 is 3 to 1 odds, minus the 2 shifts, becomes 1 to 1 odds. But I think as the Germans, we are willing to go for it. Oh, what am I even doing? It doesn't even, there's no point. This unit can't be involved in the attack. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm all over the place. It's probably because I have allowed myself to enjoy some beer today, and I'm just not as focused as I normally would be. So it'd be 34 to 12, which would come out to be 2 to 1, minus 2 shifts would be 1 to 2. We still have an opportunity to force a retreat. I think it's worthwhile making the die roll for this. I think it's worth it. I do. These units are of the same. Let's see, is there any divisional integrity issues? I don't believe so. Nope, we are all set. So this is 1 to 2. If I roll a 5 or a 6, they take Elsenborn and the game gets tricky. That's a cocked die, so I have to re-roll it. And I rolled a 6. So when I first rolled it, it was cocked up against a couple of counters. I re-rolled it, and it's a 6. So, interesting. So is there anything the defender can do about a DR result at this point? There are special cases where units can turn a retreat into a loss, but I do not believe these units qualify for that. I'm going to double check. If they do, they're going to do it, but I don't think that they do. Allied Airborne. Those are not Allied Airborne units. So there is a retreat. There is a retreat. Let me see if there's any other things that keep this from happening for the Allies, because this is really bad for them. Really, really bad for them. Okay, no, there's nothing. So these guys have to retreat. So it's going to be, I guess, 1, 2, 1, 2. This is knocked 2 turns ahead. So this is effectively 2 engineering units we've removed. Let me get you back on camera, guys. Sorry. These guys retreated to here. We advance a unit after combat, advance a unit after combat. This marker no longer matters. This guy goes back onto him. And, I mean, that's pretty gnarly. And the important thing is that changed the balance of the shifts now. So this is pretty important. Elsenborn may not be a victory location, but that die roll was pretty clutch. What's really interesting, I think, is that like even a 1 to 2 ratio combat, if you can handle the losses, it's totally worth trying, because even that retreat can be super valuable. And the fact that we just got that retreat to force the Allies out of that town, or that village rather, I mean, that's stellar stuff for them. Truly, truly stellar stuff. So that is it for the 6th Panzer action. They did well using all of their aggregate armor. They are across that river, and they're basically going to have an opportunity to start cutting a path this way. Heck, I mean, they could, if they can take this town, they have a path to Eupen, or Eupen, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Eupen. and that would be a victory hex, and that would put some pressure on, because then they're not far from Liege either. So that's a pretty critical die roll. It's like the dice fate. The fact that the first die roll was a cocked die, that must mean something. That's going to impact the rest of the game. Okay, so that was two German chits in a row, which means that the next chit, I think, has to be the remaining Allied chit. I think it has to be. And there's still several German chits left. So I think I might need to double check how this works. Is the reinforcement chit considered a chit? I think it is. Trying to see if there's anything else. Okay, yeah, so here, yeah, okay. So the next chit has to be the sole remaining Allied chit, and then the other chits that are left in the cup are going to be German chits all in a row. So there you go. So the Allies again have the option move or combat. Combat's not looking so good for them. Movement is probably better. So I think the Allies are going to do movement. Now, they don't have a lot of options of where or how they're going to move. I think they can move, like, yeah, I try to get everything on the board here. Moving a unit over here just so there's a greater ability to sort of defend. I'm almost wanting to call this guy up, but it makes sense to kind of hold something. I think this guy wants to go 1, 2, 3. And this guy, he's going to be stuck. Be 1, 2, 3, and he's stuck moving right there. I think what we need to do is destroy that bridge. Destroy that bridge. Destroy that bridge. So I kind of need to put destroyed bridge markers all over Malmedy. Could do an emergency withdrawal with this guy, but I can't for this guy. Do this is kind of the best thing I can opt to do with movement. So you can see I have something of a line. I need to keep this. I have to keep this in as good a shape as I can and hold so that you can't threaten Eupen. It sucks that I'm even in this position as the Allies, but that clutch Elsenborn capture puts that whole area under some nasty threat. A lot of concentrated armor here is making a huge difference as well. Okay, that is it. For them, that's the best they can really hope for right now. And now we're going to pull the rest of the chits for the Germans. And the first one up is the 3 formation chit. I'm going to just do this off camera because I need to go read what it does. To be clear, the German forms a move round followed by a combat round with 1 armored formation, 1 mechanized formation, and 1 infantry formation. Formation can be of divisional size or smaller and includes all the regiments, KG, and battalions of that formation. This is only available turns 2 to 9. So I actually have a fair amount of leeway with what I do with this one. A move round followed by with one armored formation, one mechanized formation, and one infantry. So one of each. It's kind of interesting how that would work. So I need to think through. That action. What shits do I even have left? I have a 5th Panzer activation. I have what would be a combat activation and some supply. I mean, there's definitely an incentive to try to make something happen down here because I could take Luxembourg. So if I have the 212th do a movement, I did like this. I actually think this is a good idea to force the situation down here because if we can get into these hexes, we're going to be in a nice shape. So I am going to do that, and there's going to be combat here. I'm just going to mark that like so. I said I was going to do this off camera. Apparently I'm lying. I was a liar, and I'm working through it up here. What do we want our mechanized to be? Well, we don't really have much in the way of mechanized forces right now, except for up here in the north. Everything else is some form of armor. So I could do something with these guys. I don't think there's much point. We could try to make an attack somewhere, but I don't think that would get very far. So it's really about which. Is there any other? Okay, I do have a mechanized unit that I would like to send up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then we're gonna get one armor formation, and where does that make the most sense? The first could maybe do something, or the 9th for that matter. I think we'll have the first. Well, I don't know. This is tricky because we've only got so many options. You could have the first do 17 to 3, 5 to 1, even with armor or with artillery, it would be 7. So 17 to 3. It's actually not that good of a move. What I could do, this is a tough call, guys. I'm not sure where I want to go next. It's almost, I'm not out of gas, but it's hard to determine where I can be useful. So we could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do 1, 2, 3 and a half. Sorry you guys have to even watch this. It's ridiculous that I'm doing this on camera. I'm so sorry. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four, five. See, this is the problem. It's like I don't know what's a good move anymore with the armor units that we do have. Oh, and I suppose I could have attacked with this guy. It would have been 2-to-1 odds, and he would have had artillery, so really it would have been 1-to-1 odds, and wouldn't have gained us much probably. Dang, man. Well, what we could do, 1, 2, 4.5, 5, 6, 1.5. Yeah, boy, this is just a tough call, guys. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I'm gonna take myself off camera. Okay, hey guys, I knew the video was getting long. I'm running into old habits where I let the camera running while I'm trying to decide something, and I really shouldn't do that. I thought I got over that when playing other games, but I think when I'm doing things very detailed, that's where it slows down. I ended up just going ahead and running through the rest of the German chits so that we could get through the rest of the video. The main things that really occurred is that we had some units that were out of supply, but due to retreats, they were able to, they took some step losses, but they were able to get out of the situation, which was bad on me for not closing the noose tighter. But they got forced back. We do have a unit that is reduced, but he's pretty much good to go moving forward from there. Let's see, I've got a couple of markers that are still out there that kind of don't really matter anymore. So we've pushed beyond Saint-Vith. We're pushing here. We're pushing here. We're running into issues due to the army restrictions. So it's like I can't really push this way until those are lifted. Up here, we've sort of stagnated. We eliminated some units there. I think I maybe forgot to. Oh no. I eliminated a unit here. They advanced after combat. So we're sort of getting to the point where that line is becoming consolidated. But out where things are a little more dicey, I've chosen to do some pretty risky things. So down south, we did try to push here, but failed due to artillery support of the Allies. We did push this unit back towards Luxembourg, so it is under threat, but it's a precarious position. It'll be really important for the Germans to do something to lock up these areas. If we can shut this down, that would be very useful for the Germans, but they got to keep pushing where they're at and hope for the best. Around Bastogne, really, we've seen the greatest change. Very large armor battles are happening around Bastogne. Whether or not the terrain's good for it is just what the situation is. And we were able to knock some Allied units away and have sort of created a situation where these units are out of supply on the Allied side. So we're disrupting the Allies' ability to take Bastogne back. I did take some armor losses across several combats, so that's kind of a bummer. And I've left now this poor guy out by himself, but my expectation is with the first German activation, we'll be able to reinforce that and kind of be in good shape from there. But the other sort of important thing is we did clear the road lines over here around Saint-Vith, so we have some better options for road movement as we get underway here. But at some juncture, the Allies are going to have to call these units off their defense orders and do something to disrupt the Germans at the moment. So the Germans are sitting right now at 3 victory points. They have a couple that are under threat. Eupen is under threat. Luxembourg City is under threat. Depending on how the Cauldron battle around Bastogne goes, we could see some sort of breakout, but I'm just not sure the Germans have enough initiative to keep it going. And that's really it for the turn. So we're going to do the end turn stuff. So 3 victory points. This guy is out of supply and is removed from the game, or removed for surrender purposes. And then these conditional reinforcements are going to matter. And then otherwise, going into turn 3, there's just a lot fewer special rolls that we really need to worry about. But we'll worry about that in the next video. So I think that'll do it here, guys. I think the Germans are still doing reasonably well. I don't know that they're going to come any closer to an automatic victory. So really what you see on the board may be as event, this is where the game's going to be. It's going to be along this sort of salient here, the bulge that is here may be the extent of what we see. But if we see some other combats go well for the Germans, we maybe some other breakthroughs will occur, and maybe we'll put other areas under threat. We'll see how it evolves. So far, having fun with it. It's an enjoyable chit pull game. I'm liking it so far. So see you in the next one, guys. Sorry this is another long one. We'll try to shorten things up into the next video again. Thanks for watching. Take care. Keep on gaming.